Hi friends, this is Audi1 and you're watching part 22nd of the sqli lab series. In the last lesson, we had expanded the test bed and included some JSP files which would run on Tomcat and would emulate as a WAF. Well, let's take it up from there and continue. We had also discussed the scenario where the Tomcat would be behaving as a kind of a proxy server or a reverse proxy publishing our Apache. That would be the backend. So this is our Tomcat. Client sends the request, Tomcat processes it, analyzes, parses the rules, etc., and then sends the request if okay to the backend server. The backend server returns the response to Tomcat, and Tomcat then sends it back to the client. Let's see this in action. So for this, we have lesson 29, lesson 30, and lesson 31. Let's start. So we say that we input ID equals 1, we get login name as dump, password as dump, and this site is protected by world's best firewall. Let's say ID equals 2. Okay, let's start to fuzz it instantly, giving a single quotes, and this time the application just redirects me to a page called hacked.jsp and it says bug off, attack blocked successfully by the dump WAF. Let's go back and try again. We say ID equals 1 and let's try something else. Let's try 1111. Okay, as we know that our database doesn't have that many number of entries, so it doesn't return us anything, but it works fine. Let's go back and let's try something else. Let's try to give it an alphanumeric thing. Let's give it A. So it does not accept A even. Let's go back and let's give it something like 1/. It even doesn't take the slash. So the question becomes, how are we going to bypass this? Well, before continuing further, let's open this up and let's analyze. As of what we are seeing on the page, it seems that the application only accepts integers or numeric values, and if we try to give any kind of alphanumeric to it, it detects that. So for lesson 29, let's open it in an editor and let's see how the code is. Oops, I opened up the wrong one. I had to open the index. Now let's analyze this. If you see, it starts like this. It says the request that we are giving through ID parameter is being input as ID, and because it's a WAF, so it's also storing the query string, the initial query string received from the client. Now there is a very small difference between what exactly is a query string and what is the get parameter. We'll discuss that in the later videos. Now if we see, we say okay, if the value is provided and if it's not null or something, then here comes our regular expression. If we evaluate this expression, it says anything should start with only digits, 1 or more, and terminate. So that means only digits are allowed, the numeric values. If there is a match, that means if there are only digits, like it's just doing a match, and say if the match is true, then go back to http localhost sqli labs lesson 29 index.php and send the query string so that the backend application can analyze and get back to us. And then read the buffer, read everything, and then just output. And just keep on outputting if you receive the inputs. And if there's a false, then just go to hack.jsp. A very simple logic. Now the question is, if this is a whitelist filter which is only accepting digits or numeric value, how can we bypass it? Well, for those who have already gone back and studied the HPP paper by Stefano and Luca for the OWASP, and even read the presentation by Ivan Ristic regarding his work on WAFs, would know the answer. The answer is the problem associated with impedance mismatch. Now, what is this impedance mismatch? Let's see it here. Now, if we see, our front end is Tomcat running JSP, and our backend is Apache running PHP. Now, the way JSP handles the parameters and the way PHP handles the parameters are totally different. What this means, the query that is being sent by the client can be interpreted in one way by this application, and the same query when passed to the backend can be interpreted in a very, very different fashion, totally opposite or something else. Confused? Well, as we move on, it will become clear. I would suggest please go back and just watch those presentations. To demonstrate this, let's take our lesson 1. So we are connected to localhost sqli labs lesson 1. This is our very old and very first lesson, running on Apache, directly PHP. Just to be sure of we are running PHP code here, I'll just say index.php and then provide the parameters id equals 1. Now, giving the reference to the HPP or the HTTP parameter pollution, if we provide the same parameter to the application more than once, then how the application reacts totally depends on the implementation, because there is no standard or nothing has been evolved yet in this field as per the presentation. So let's try this. Let's try to give id equals 8. If you remember, our id 8 was for the administrator, or the username would be admin and password would be admin. And there you go. When we provide id equals 1 and id equals 8, the application responds with the second value. So it ignores the first id parameter. Let's try one more, and let's say id equals 3, or 3 is okay. And we see that now it changed again and it's displaying the third value. Conclusion, that PHP when running on Apache gives an output or uses the ID parameter that is last. The last value is being used. Others are being ignored. Now let's come back and let's open up lesson 32 for testing, because this is an identical lesson I have prepared in JSP. Index.jsp, just that we don't get confused what is PHP and what is JSP. And let's say ID equals 1. So we get the first value dumb and dumb. And now if we input ID equals 8, when we did this on the PHP, we got the value of 8. And now let's see on JSP. Well, on JSP it's totally different. It takes the first value. Let's add one more. Same result. So we can conclude that when JSP is running or Java is running, Java applications take the first parameter and ignore anything else if there is a reoccurrence of the same parameter. But for PHP, it ignores the first ones and takes the last. So we can use this behavior of impedance mismatch to bypass the WAF, because it's a JSP WAF. So if we provide the first parameter as ID equals 1, so 1 being a digit would be valid. And let's go back to lesson 29. Index.jsp, ID equals 1. And now if we give another parameter ID equals 2 or 3, whatever, you see the difference? Even being JSP, it is displaying me the second value. But we just tested that JSPs or the Java applications just use the first value. Well, as these values are numeric, so the filter passes it. The first ID equals 1 is a true value, filter accepts it, and as per the logic, it just goes to the backend. Backend interprets this query string. Actually, whatever you enter in as query is called completely the query string, and you see this below. This is the query string entered. So when it checks the ID parameter in the get, it says okay, you have entered ID equals 1. So it says the value is okay, nothing malicious in it. So it passes the query string to the backend without doing anything else, and the backend just takes the query string and parses the second value of it. It says because the PHP behavior is to parse the second one or the last one. Now it is clear, right? So if we use HPP and use the impedance mismatch, we can bypass the whitelist firewall if it is susceptible to the impedance mismatch. Let's inject and see, and bingo, we have the error. Well, rather than not going into the details of exploiting the database again and again, let me just give you the basic example. Union select 1 comma 2 comma 3 hyphen hyphen and the last plus sign, and we see 2 and 3 on the screen, and we can say database, and we see security on the screen, and if we say at data dir, so it shows from where it is being loaded. So in fact it was just easy. This is all for now for this video. I would request you to please leave your feedback. Your feedback helps me motivate more and make more good videos. Once again, I would like to thank the great people in the industry who do such an awesome research and share their research with other people to learn and understand. Thank you very much, guys. Kudos to you, and bye for now.